I'm delighted to introduce Diana and her partner, Michaela, brought to you from Ohio via Big Mom van. And today is a particularly special day because it is Diana's birthday. And I thought we could welcome her with a happy birthday song. Do you not want that?
It's up to you.
Let's do it. But I'm not going to do it by the mic. Okay. Someone who can start.
Happy birthday to you.
Shut up.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Diana.
Oh.
Happy birthday to you.
This is gift enough, is getting to spend some time with you guys today. How are my Zoom people doing? Oh, very good. So we have these slips been passed around. We have the utensils passed around, and we're going to go ahead and to start, I will introduce myself. My name is Diana Boggs. I am from a very small town in west central Ohio called West Liberty. That is just about 10 minutes up the road from the very lovely, also small town of Urbana, Ohio, home to Urbana University, where I went to college. That's where I first became acquainted with the Swedenborgians. And so it's been beautiful since then, getting to grow this relationship, as it were. But having grown up in this small town, I looked around myself all the time and didn't notice it at first. But as I got older, I realized there was a distinct lack of pride. And the town in that area, the several counties all around, are pretty conservative, pretty religious, very not heavily populated at all, very, very rural. Lots and lots of soybean and cornfields. And I decided that I wasn't busy, so I decided I should start my town's first Pride Parade in this small town back in 2019. I had a lot of people try to tell me that violence would befall me, people would attack us, horrible things might happen. I didn't think that would happen, and it didn't. Everything was beautiful. Everybody had a lovely, safe time. But what I did notice was a lot of people coming up to me afterwards, and during and before, with questions. Why here? Why now? Why the rainbow? What do the letters mean? Why those colors in the rainbow? And these were all very decent questions. Nobody knows anything until they're told. We don't need to stigmatize ignorance, but that's what I realized is we don't have as much a hateful problem. Now, hateful people can be very loud and make a whole lot of noise, but I think what we have very, very few hateful and angry people. What we have is lots and lots of ignorant people. And again, ignorance doesn't need to be stigmatized. It's nobody knows anything until they're told. I didn't know one bit of this 6 years ago, and here I'm giving talks on it. Is we all learn more throughout our lives. And so that is what inspired me to put together the Gay Talk, is a way to reach out to people and have conversations with people. So just a few people at a time, I'd be able to make the world that much less ignorant. And there would be that many more informed people going out. And I've worked in education for most of my life, and so putting things in a way that people can digest them and move forward with that information, that is my very favorite thing. I am bisexual, I am a transgender woman, and there is nothing you can put on these slips that will upset me. That being said, if you write any questions I do not want to answer, I don't have to. So if I do have something that is maybe extra personal, or maybe I don't need to yell into a microphone about, then I will explain why that question might be a sticking point for some people, and maybe a different way it could have potentially have been phrased. And to that end, we have these slips of papers going around. When I do this in a smaller group, I tell everybody, no matter what, write something. Because when I was in middle school, they'd say, okay, anonymous questions. They'd pass out papers, and then only one person would write. And then everyone would turn and look. And then that one person would walk up to the front and put that slip in the box. And then that teacher makes eye contact with that kid as they take out that one piece and read it. That is not an anonymous question. So in this case, the ups and downs, the layers, I don't think we'll have that issue at all. And I really hope you will pepper me with questions, and we will get to this. We'll hopefully answer some of them as we go. The gay talk I have amended today, so it will fulfill the goals we have here, because I was led to understand that a lot of people in this denomination have interest in moving themselves and their congregations in a friendlier and welcoming and open direction, but there was some confusion and questions and ponderings about how best to proceed about this, and that is, again, that's perfect. This is what we're here for. And so the gay talk, as I usually give it, has been amended ever so slightly so I can make sure I can address some of these points about how individual persons within a church and church bodies themselves can work towards making themselves friendlier. The first question I would usually ask is, so I've just talked about you asking me. I also will usually start these off with asking the participants some questions to get them thinking, to get them opening up. So one of these would be, when did you, and so you can reflect on this internally. If anybody has a really good thought, you can yell out to me and I'll repeat in here for the Zoomers. When do you first remember in your own lives hearing that gay people or lesbian people or bisexual people exist? When did you first realize this was a thing? And where did your influences about and information about these people, where did that come from? People get influenced by TV, from their friends, from their family, from churches. And these influences color a lot of these first understandings, for good or for bad or for anything in between. And with that, when did you realize about your own sexuality? I don't want first encounter stories. I don't want to hear about the back seat of the car, or the dorm room. This is, when did you realize, oh, I like these people. I think these people are neat. Is because a lot of us, I think, hit that point in different ways and at different times. And everybody, not just gay people, lesbian people, bisexual people, not just these people, everybody hits a point where they'll start to think, is that person interesting? Am I interested in that person? And that in and of itself is usually a process. For myself, I first heard about gay people from the movie Joe Dirt. I saw a couple of expressions. Yeah, that is David Spade at his finest, that movie. And so they were clearly using these words pejoratively to hurt people's feelings, to be nasty, calling each other names, essentially. And so I heard what this word was, but I had no context. So little kids, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. So I had to, kids do this all the time. Adults do this all the time, as context clues, is what does this mean, and trying to put it together based on the context in which we hear it. So I first thought, okay, gay probably means dorky and not very good at sports. I am quite gay in that sense, but and then the other side of this is, what was the first time you understood or heard about transgender people? And the same, where did these first impressions, first influences come from? And how and when did you recognize your own gender identity is who you are as a person? It's because everybody here has some kind of sexual orientation, is who I like or don't like. Everybody here has a gender identity, this is who I am. And it is not just trans people that have to come into these understandings of, oh, this is who I am, and this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to carry myself and act and everything. And I think that I personally, I feel that boy and man, girl and woman count as different genders, is because boy and man have different expectations and are expected to act differently. Girl and woman have slightly different expectations as to what they mean. And so everybody goes through periods as, this is how I want to carry myself, this is how I want to present. And maybe you realize later, well, maybe I do want to do more of that instead. I think a lot of people in this auditorium might have had a big hair phase some decades ago, or maybe a mullet period, mercifully briefly. Mullet, how many times can I bring this talk back to Joe Dirt? There absolutely is a renaissance of the mullet. I could do a whole other mini course about the mullet renaissance. Yeah, next year. Does anybody here have anything they would feel comfortable sharing in terms of where did your first impressions come from? And beautiful. We already have the ice broken. One of the Zoomers has weighed in a little bit. They say their first understanding of gay people is whispering and gossiping in the 5th grade. They are bad, in reference to a lesbian. And that made me, the speaker made me terrified in case, what if I find out I'm a lesbian? My terror was to be gossiped about, ostracized at this religious school. Shame and fear was a big source of those first impressions. And my own mom has a very similar story to that. Is she and her best little friend with their pigtails, they were 7 years old, holding hands in the line for lunch at school, and girls laughed at them and called them lesbians. They didn't even know what it meant, but they could tell it was bad, so they just got scared. That is, unfortunately, the shame and fear is a reoccurring motif with a lot of the first understandings. Does anyone in the auditorium have anything they'd like to share? Just one. Well, I can. If how big? Do you want to step down to the microphone to share, if you're comfortable, or I can repeat it for the Zoomers? I think this is the only hot mic for today. I can share the podium. I'm good at sharing.
Thanks so much. So when I was about 4 or 5 years old, my great aunt Nancy Barnett's, not my mom. This is the woman who my mom is named after, owned our old family house in Atlanta, Georgia, and she lived there with her partner Elizabeth. And my grandma tried really hard to convince me that they were friends, because Elizabeth had her own bedroom with a tiny little, like, day bed in it, which was apparently where she slept. My mom explained things to me that, maybe appearances would be deceiving, because Aunt Nancy had the coolest house I've ever been in, and she had leopard print sheets on her king-sized bed in her bedroom. And that has been my image of a liberated woman all my life. And to this day, I have leopard print sheets on my bed.
Every time we're in a thrift store together, for me it's snakeskin. I haven't worn snakeskin since I was 6, but I say, ooh, snakeskin pants. Ooh, snakeskin purse. And she keeps me normal. I'm very thankful about that. Normal in quotations, yeah. Any other thought before we press on?
So I kind of have two sides. First knew about, I guess you would say, gay people probably when I was like 4 or 5, because I had a cousin who was gay, and my mom always said, "It's your cousin, you just love them." But I would go to school, and it was far more, I grew up with, that's gay, and it was something wrong. So introduced around the same time, but given two different. This is fine, we love them because people are people and you just love and care, and then your peers telling you that you're wrong. So that was kind of mine.
I caught the tail end of that is when I was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9. I come to school one day and everything is, this is gay, that's gay, I don't want to do that, that's gay. And there was a series of PSAs put out. I don't know who exactly paid to put them out, but it was Wanda Sykes, it was Lindsay Lohan, were a couple of these celebrities, there might have been more. Those are the two I remember, is that, hey, don't say gay if you mean something is silly or stupid. That doesn't track, that's not what that means. And then by the time I was in middle school, that pretty much stopped. So those worked, these PSAs were on the kid channels. And so we obviously absorbed them somehow, is because that definitely stopped pretty quick. And I am very thankful that those got put out. I think there could be a very fantastic study about the sociology and psychology behind those PSAs and what they did and everything. So one of you can get on that. So you've already had these pamphlets. You can go ahead and open, fresh. Yeah, mine's kind of crumply. If you open to the first page on the left there, one of these things I got asked a lot when I first started doing this work years ago was, what do those letters mean? And that's very fair. It is LGBTQ plus is an acronym. Between you and me, it's not actually an acronym. It is an initialization, like CIA, FBI. Acronym is like scuba or laser, where the letters mean something, but they also sound out a word. You don't say Fabi or Kia, and you sure don't say Ligdibdibik. You could. This is an acronym with each letter representing for something: lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and the Q is usually standing for queer or questioning. The plus is meant to represent everybody else. And it seems to me like at least a couple times a year, a new letter gets tacked on. No one is expecting you to remember all of the letters. As long as you can hit the first 4 and add the plus, you're fine, because that plus means everybody else. So if you are, LGBT plus, LGBTQ plus means all the same thing. That plus counts every one of the letters that isn't tacked up in front. So that is a common anxiety I have heard is, I can't remember all them. Now there's numbers being put in. And there are. But no, again, no, you're not going to be quizzed on this, and nobody's going to wrap your hand with a ruler if you leave one of these letters out. The acronym, though, and now the word I get asked about the word queer quite a lot. It has been decades of people. The oldest photo I have seen of this word is on a sign from 1973. We're here, we're queer, get used to it. And so 73, 23, that is 50 years of work at least people have been putting in to reclaim this word. Personally, myself as Diana, I identify as a queer person. To me, the word is a shorthand for LGBTQ+. That doesn't roll off the tongue as easy. Queer. Punchier. And it also encapsulates all of the letters just as the acronym and the plus sign does. So I have told people that I am queer before, and then they try to guess which of the letters I am. If I wanted to tell you, I would have told you. But leading with this is a way that I get to express my identity without labeling myself which letter I am. And so under this acronym can be visualized as an umbrella. It is how I first fit it into my head, as metaphors really help me. So imagining this as an umbrella. Differing sexual orientations and gender identities fit under here that are not cisgender, meaning you identify as the gender you were assigned at birth. Doctor looks at you, stamps a little F on that paper, and then you identify as F for the rest of your life. That is cisgender. Cis from the Latin on this side of transgender, trans from the Latin across. In South Africa, you have the Transvaal Boers, the pioneers essentially who went across the Vaal River. If you ever read any of Caesar's works, he talks about Cisalpine Gaul and Transalpine Gaul. France on this side of the mountains, France on that side of the mountains, across the mountains. And heterosexual being hetero meaning different, you are interested in people the opposite gender from you. And so if you are neither of those things, or not one of them, if you are not both of them, you can fit under this umbrella. And so this is a pretty all-encompassing term, as I said, LGBTQ plus queer. These are all-encompassing. And so people will often ask me as well about, well, if you're trans, how come you're dating a girl? Those are not connected. There are gender identities and sexual orientations. Sexual orientations is who you would like to go to bed with. Gender identities, who you would like to go to bed as. And yeah, so this is who you are and who you are interested in. what these different things are. So under the sexual orientations side of this umbrella, you have the terms. You have lesbian, gay, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, on and on. Typically, these are going to end with the phrase or the word sexual with some kind of prefix tacked onto it. Now, on the other side of this umbrella, you see the expansive gender identities. So everybody on that side, everybody under the transgender umbrella says they put this letter on my birth certificate. That is not completely me. It can be as little or as big a thing and as individual as there are as many individual people who identify this way. And so just under the transgender umbrella itself, you have trans men and trans women. I was born this, now I am that. But that umbrella has another one underneath it. That is the non-binary umbrella for the non-binary identities. And so you will see some people who simply say, I am non-binary, and that's good enough. That phrase means you do not fit in as an individual to the strict, artificial binary of human gender, being man, woman. You are maybe a combination. Maybe you are a little bit of both, more of one, more of the other. Maybe you think you are none. Maybe you are sometimes one and then the other. Maybe you're something totally different. Those all fall under the non-binary umbrella. So, as I said, the non-binary identities can fall under transgender usually, and that all fits under the LGBTQ plus queer umbrella. And nobody expects you to memorize all of this and to know everything about everything. I do this professionally, and I still find new things out all the time. People will tell me I'm this, and it's like, fascinating. What does that mean? Awesome, cool, good for you. That is, we need to be able to, and we will touch on this throughout, but we are allowed to give ourselves the grace of I don't have to be all-knowing and all-seeing. I am allowed to just embrace people as they are. Are there any thoughts or ideas or questions at this point? My Zoomers? Oh, sure. Can I hold the iPad up here so I can see as they pop up? Oh, okay. William S. Burroughs from Colin, thank you, Colin, wrote the novel Queer in the 1950s, early 60s as an attempt to reclaim it and push it into topic discussion. I love that. And so that, okay, here the earliest picture I saw photo was 73. Here he says late 50s, 60s. Whoosh, goes back even further. And I think that feeds into the trying to make it into a topic, make it into a discussion. That is great. That's what we're doing here now, is we are having a discussion. Is we don't need to be, when we are afraid of this, when we allow it to be taboo, it doesn't get talked about. And in that darkness and in that ignorance, people suffer. Shining light on something, having a conversation about something, asking questions about something hurts nobody, but stands to really benefit society a whole lot. That is a beautiful addition, Colin. Thank you.
Diana, could you explain the difference between bisexual and non-binary?
Okay, bisexual and non-binary, the difference between those two. Off the bat, bisexual is a sexual identity or orientation. Non-binary is a gender identity, so the one being bisexual for myself, I view that as I find some men interesting. I find some women interesting. Not everybody all at once. I don't have the energy. I do not find everybody in the world equally attractive. I'm not built quite that way. And yeah, so I grew up, as a little kid, it was kind of just inherent to me, I think. I didn't have the word or the words or the vocabulary for it, but I always liked boys since I was a little kid. I just didn't know that's what I was feeling. And then I didn't start liking girls until I think I was in high school. I am with a girl now, and she's wonderful, and I love her, and we're going to get married someday, and that's going to be incredible. But so that is, bisexual is who you... She has told me, if you propose, I will say no. I am going to propose to you. She just does not like surprises, yeah. So schedules and on time, yeah, that is so yeah, I'll be surprised someday, and that'll be beautiful. So that is, yes, bisexual is, I am interested in this variety of people over here. Non-binary is, well, I don't really think of myself as a man or a woman. I think I'm kind of both. So that is how you see yourself. Non-binary is how you see yourself, and bisexual is in reference to who you are interested in.
So someone, in other words, can be both.
You can be
No
both.
specific person who introduced themselves to you as I'm non-binary bisexual. And it's like, okay, so you go to bed as someone who's neither male or female, but you're interested in everyone.
Yeah.
So yes, they feel like they'd be contradictory, but someone can be both.
Yes. So if somebody could introduce them, I'm just going to repeat really quickly for what Michaela said for the Zoomers, is someone could introduce themselves as non-binary and bisexual. And so that says, it's like, okay, cool, you can be both. I am neither perfectly man or woman. I think I'm a little bit of both, but also I am interested in men and women and everybody in between. So you can have two things. I have two things. I am transgender and bisexual myself. A lot of people have two things. The letters are kind of like Pokemon. Some people want to collect them all. Go for it. Are there any thoughts before we move across the page?
Someone has explained, because people ask if someone is non-binary, how they can be bisexual, because then that's like a binary. And they explained it that bisexual means that you are attracted to someone whose sexuality is not yours necessarily. So it's like people, and that can include anyone who's not identifying as something different than you.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting way to explain it, because pan is more of that, like, everybody.
Yeah, I was at, Alex explained that bisexual is you are just, it is still in reference to who you are interested in. So you could be interested in people that are different than you, but bisexual is also not rigidly, despite the bi, too, in the prefix. I never viewed, and most people I know and have spoke with do not view bisexual as strictly binary. Is much more encompassing, because that is also what the term pansexual means. Pan meaning all around, all across. And so I was at a Pride event a year or two ago, and someone asked, what is the difference between bisexual and pansexual? And I said, spelling. These words have a lot of overlap in what they mean, but for some people the distinction is important, and how they identify is, that is a good addition, is This is beautiful. Do I have anything else from the Zoomers before we press on? Okay. The top right on the next page, you see a block about coming out. Coming out, or is shorthand for coming out of the closet, is the process by which someone willingly shares information about their gender identity and sexual orientation with others. This is treated a lot of time as a one-time thing, but for a lot of people, coming out is a series of discussions and decisions, and those decisions are sometimes made daily. I was just speaking with someone in the lobby a little bit ago about a lot of us are really used to the Caitlyn Jenner story. Is that a lot of people heard about this? Is you go away for a month, and then you come back, and you have an entirely different wardrobe, totally different haircut, different name, different shoes, different everything. This is me now. But also, you have every camera in the Western world pointed at you. So everybody in the Western world hears about this information and has it for themselves. And so Caitlyn Jenner, as a trans woman, is going to surprise very few people because this has been so broadcasted. A lot of us, or I should say almost all of us, do not have that many cameras pointed at us all the time. And so not everybody already knows everything about me. We go into a restaurant or a store, I have to wonder if I am going to be safe in this place as a trans person. There are many states, I'll circle back to that. There are, yes, the decision to come out and when and where and to who is made often. And as I said, sometimes daily. So new person comes to work, new person's on the site. Do I tell this person? Is everybody else going to tell this person? Is because this is, in many ways, this is personal. This is your own information. It can come out, and this can deeply impact people when this information is got a hold of into the wrong settings. Is these, as I said, every new space you enter, you have to decide if it is safe to share this information. Where we live, in Ohio, you can be evicted from an apartment for the sole reason of being a trans person. Your landlord is allowed to look at you and say, gross, I don't politically agree with that. Out you go. You can, in many places, be fired from jobs. You can be pushed out formally or informally from these places as well. You can be pushed out of churches. So you may be, or someone may be in the closet for a variety of reasons in some settings and with some people, and maybe more out to other people. When I first came out to I had two friends, I had two best friends at the time, and I came out to them as bisexual. This was years ago. I'd never come out before. This was terrifying. I just come out to them, and one of them says, cool, all right. And the other says, if you don't tell your sister, I will. That put me on a timer. And so now I have a ticking clock. I have a stopwatch running. Before it runs out, I have to tell her, or he will. And I don't know what story he's going to tell. I did not want to tell my sister. I told these two. And for me personally, that was because small town, not that small family. I know the network. I know the path of information. So I tell my sister. She'll tell my mom. She'll tell my grandma. And she'll tell my aunt. Then I'll have my aunt asking me really horrible questions at Thanksgiving. And I didn't want that. So, but that's the network. That's how it went. And so, okay. And fortunately, I told my sister, and she was very cool about it. And I don't think that information got spread. But that is directly brings to the topic of when somebody comes out to you, this is a big sign of trust. You could react with, no, that's okay, I already knew. Well, then why'd I bother telling you? As every time you go to come out to somebody, you have to gear yourself up. You have to have this emotional strength because you know, unless that person has made very, very obviously clear, unless they have looked you in the eyes and said, essentially, is almost what it takes, is if you are gay, if you are trans, if you are bi, if you are anything, I will love you no matter what. Unless they have given you that exact speech and you believe they meant it, you don't know how they're going to react when you come out to them. And that can be terrifying. That can be really isolating and alienating. And some people will think, well, I will save them that effort. I will save them that anxiety. I'll just tell people for them. It'll be so much easier. But then if that information goes out beyond where that person wants, that circles right back again to they might not be telling these people on purpose. They might be withholding that information in this setting because they don't feel ready to announce themselves in this setting. Is when I first changed my name, I started changing my name, there were a couple of times when I went into, I'd be in some public place, and because of the job I was doing, because of where I was working at the moment, I'm wearing bib overalls, I'm wearing a flannel, I'm looking pretty masculine in this moment, and somebody would yell at me, "Diana, hi girl!" And now I got everyone in Walmart giving me looks. I appreciate the enthusiasm so much. Am I in danger now? I got this family with their cart giving me looks. I got that guy staring at me. I got this little kid wondering what's going on. I feel icky now. And so this is somebody's sharing this information with you means something, and you can be appreciative of that, and you can be thankful for that, and you can explain as much to them. But a good thing to always check in with is, how confidential is this information? Are you out in all settings? Are you out to everyone? Does it matter if this gets brought up? I quit watching the show when I was 10, but there was an episode of Survivor a few years ago where they're sitting at the tribal council and everyone's thinking, who are we going to vote out? Who's in an alliance? Who's good at challenges? And the host is trying to get them talking, see if he can stir any trouble and get them agitated before they vote. And one man turns to another man and says, well, hey, did you all know he's trans? On TV. And so to that trans man's credit, he just kind of like sat there super cool and was, and everyone turns and he says, yeah, I told you and asked you not to tell anyone. And now here we are, and it's been on TV. And he tried to backtrack. The man who outed him said, no, I thought you were out to everybody. And this, but then why did you whip it out as, he's been keeping a secret? That's why we need to get rid of it. And so the host was super cool about it. Everyone was pretty disgusted, even guys who didn't like people who didn't, I don't know the context, but even people who weren't in the Trans Man's Alliance were like, hey, that's really uncool, guy. host says, I don't think we even have to vote, do we? And that man said, yeah, I kept talking himself in circles, and he just kind of, I know what I did. And he walked right off. He voted himself off. He apologized about it later, and they're friends, and they put that on TV too. But like that's an example of it's not, how that works and what being outed can feel like and how scary that can be and everything. Yes, I've been in settings where this is social currency, is meaning this is the hot new gossip that I get to share, and that makes me look so cool and hip, oh, well, did you know this? Oh, she's actually Diana now. And that, in one case, it was, I show up to substitute at this school, and somebody says, we're all chatting before the day starts, and someone says, oh, yesterday before you came in, I told all the kids you have new pronouns. Cool. And the kids were young enough, I knew the kids already, I wasn't really disturbed about it, but a couple of them were definitely kind of little smarty pantses to me about it. And then at the end of the day, teachers are talking again, kids are gone, and a teacher says, yeah, one of the parents even called me last night and was like really upset about the man in a dress being around their kids. Like, isn't that crazy? I saw all those parents as they picked up their kids. I don't know which one of them is upset about me. It was cold out. It was February. I was wearing boots and Carhartts and flannels because it's cold out. And I left all the fishnets at home that day. And I was put in that position because this information had been used as currency. Aren't I so ahead of the curve? Aren't I so smart because I have this information before all of you and I get to explain what it means for you poor dullards? Okay, a couple of good questions have come in here. One being, it is an honor to be confided. Excuse me. It is an honor to be confided in, and it is not the non-queer's story to spread. Spreading that confidence without the LGBTQ's specific consent is betrayal. That is a heavy word, but if you've been asked not to share that, that is what that is. That is a betrayal of trust, a betrayal of confidence. That is a very good point to make. Thank you.
If anyone has any anonymous questions, just flag me down and I'll start
If you want to
collecting
just
them.
make a round real quick. We had a non-anonymous question, a hand raised, but I don't know what any of your handwriting is, so they're anonymous to me. When I get them up here, I'll shake that box real good, so it'll be a fun surprise. You go to put the slip in the box. Oh, that's not mine. I'm holding this slip for a friend. We've all heard that before, yeah.
So, what do you do? All right, I don't know what I am, but I'm non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do when you tell a friend or a family member or whatever, and they say, "Oh no, you're obviously not that. You're totally a woman. Look at you." It's like, no.
Somebody posited the very good question of, I am non-binary. They say, I am non-binary. What do you do in the situation where you tell a family member, I am this way, and they say, no, obviously you're not. Look at you. You look that way. For me, I get my feelings hurt. I don't know if fortunate is the right word, but my personal scenario is I don't associate with my family that wouldn't accept me as a person, as I have not spoken to these people for a long time. Today marks 10 years since I quit speaking to my dad. And that was the day I turned 18. It was, all right. And when I wrote, when I wanted to come out to my family, as trans, the family members I speak to, that's my mom, my sister, and my brother, I was really scared to do that. And that does take a lot of emotional strength on your part. And so I couldn't even speak to them in person, as I wrote them letters. And I thought, if they're going to be nasty, they can crumple that letter up and I don't have to see them again. But if they're going to be friendly, then I'll hear back from them. When I am confronted with a notion of, look at you, you look just like this. Well, you look like a man, you look like a woman. What does that look like? I was reading a book to some school kids years ago. A little 6-year-old girl hits on this point about a little girl, and now he wants to be a little boy. And that's the page, and then we move on and talking about something else, and this girl says, well, hang on. Boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. Someone's taught the 6-year-old terms. Cool. But I said, can you be a woman if you have one arm? Yeah. Could you be a man if you had no legs? Yeah. Body parts and how you look, then, doesn't determine who you are. And, oh yeah, okay. Then the next page was about dinosaurs or something. This is the notion of a strict gender binary and all men look this way, all women look that way, is entirely fabricated. It is entirely made up. Everybody in this room has seen, I am certain, such a beautiful, dazzling variety of humanity that to say that there is necessary qualifiers for it to be in that club, that's who you are, that's what you are, and that's that. That's kind of, that is artificial. That's kind of ridiculous. If you are non-binary, that is what you are. And it's not easy when people close to us don't accept that or acknowledge that, but there's a non-zero chance that they will come around over time, and that with explanations and conversations, they may see the other side of that. That's the only suggestion I can give you in that instance. That's a hard scenario, and I'm sorry you have that. Are there any other thoughts about coming out before we move down the page? 3 minutes? Okay, pronouns. Everybody has them. Pronoun takes the place of a noun. It's a part of speech. You, I, we, they, them, he, she, these are all pronouns.
It's what stops us from sounding like cave people.
And Diana, go this way, bring Michaela. And so everybody has them. They are how you identify. They are often attached to, but not always determinants of gender. This is just how you want to be referred to as. This is a label. And they're what...
Can I break the news to them? Can I break the news to them?
break news.
You all already have pronouns.
Yeah, you all already have pronouns, including the Zoomers.
The government's not going to come around and ask you to like draw them out of a hat. You already had them. You've already had them. You have them. You will have them.
I was in a setting where somebody told me I don't want my pronouns on my name tag because I am not reduced down to those letters. Like, that is not all I am. I am more than just this. I am a whole person with a whole identity and personality. And I said, awesome. But if I say, if I call you she, you're not going to be upset about that because that's already how you identify. This is not asking anybody to reduce anything down to anything or diminish anything at all. A really easy way to make any space more opening or make yourself appear more opening is your pronouns on name tags. Your pronouns tacked on to the end of your email. This says, hey, these are the ones I use. Because we've all emailed a Chris or an Alex or a Danny. And then you're wondering, if I call this person, I don't want to call them the wrong thing. I don't want to say the wrong thing when I meet this person. I don't know what Chris or Danny or Alex I'm going to be dealing with. And so pronouns takes the guesswork right out of that. But also, if the only people who ever bring up their pronouns are trans people, are gender non-conforming people, that's no longer an anonymous question. That is, hey, I'm trans, I use these pronouns. You never have to be afraid to ask for pronouns, but if you're asking one person pronouns, ask somebody else's if you don't know. If you've just met this person, I was at a party, I'm standing with a group of people. Somebody comes up to introduce themselves, they look at everybody, and then they look me up and down. And what are your pronouns? I'm the one you had to wonder about. That's what that means, is you wondered about me. And so I was put on the spot right there. And that can feel a little alienating if you only approach the one flat-chested, shaved-head person and say, hey, what's your deal? That they can share if they want to. They're more than welcome to share. Oh, yes, my name is Tom. Hi. Okay. But again, putting that onus only ever on these people is alienating and often outing in how it works. Yeah. Are there any other questions or notions about or pronouns before I press on to the anonymous questions as efficiently as I can? Oh, I know who said this. Recently, I have seen LGBTQAI+. What is the AI? AI stands for asexual. A for asexual, usually, as in, I'm not really interested in anybody. A story you hear from asexual people a lot is, I thought everybody was joking about hooking up. I thought making out was just a thing in movies. I didn't know people did that. Ew. That is usually somebody who would say they are asexual has this. And
If anyone, whoever wrote that question wants to talk about it, I can recommend books. I can talk about it in depth.
I usually stands for intersex. This is a term for somebody who is born with a combination of male and female anatomy, chromosomes, hormones, a combination that is not perfectly A or B. And so
This is occurring both in humans and in the animal world. That's why like 90% of calico cats are females. Anytime you see a male calico cat, it's because it's essentially an intersex cat. It has both female and male chromosomes. Calico is only gendered for like female cats, but every once in a while a male cat will get born with a female pattern because their chromosomes are different.
And so when anybody says, you are what your chromosomes are, there's only two kinds, science, they don't know science because that's not true. Do you feel evolutionary biology poses questions or issues to gender essentialism. Evolutionary biology, in terms of humans, we've evolved very slowly over a very long period of time, and I don't think that poses that. I think what destroys gender essentialism is a freshman class in biology, and just walking down the street of a city and looking at people different than you. Gender essentialism, there is only this and there is only that, and you can only be this and you can only be that. For all of human history, there have been gender variant people. Herodotus, 3,000 years ago, wrote about trans women in modern day Ukraine. Oh, so you just. Oh,
Sorry.
do you want to come around?
Yeah. I'm sorry. That's okay.
My partner's coming around here.
When we talk about when people say biology, there's only one and the other, I ask people to consider cephalopods, snails, hermaphroditic. The clownfish will sometimes change its gender halfway through its life naturally to preserve itself for reproductive purposes. And when we look at historically through the human lens of the gender binary, when you look at the longer initialism, the two is connected to the S, standing for two spirit. This is not a term for white people. I'm going to throw that one out right now. That's not ours. It's actually an indigenous term for indigenous Americans who, long before white people got here, were identifying members of their tribes and of their nations of people who honored both male and female spirituality. So I understand biology, I hear biology, but biology kind of is a lot more varied than we like to think it is. That's my only thought on that.
How do you respond to religious people who say that pride is a sin? I would say, of course you don't have any pride. Look at how you're dressed. If they're saying pride as in pride as a general concept, capital P, one of the big seven, is, yeah, that's tricky for anybody to fall into. Is vanity isn't healthy or helpful, but what pride in the case of the queer movement over the last 50, 60 years, what that means is a lot of people grew up in a society saying, you are wrong, and we hate you, and you are illegal, and we would love to put you in camps or do experiments on you. And you see people saying, no, I really like myself. I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to hate myself. The Pride Parade I ran, a couple people were upset about it, but I said, we are for love and pride. That is what this is about, is celebrating loving yourself and being able to love other people. If you are against love and pride, what are you for? Hate and shame? That is what you are if you are opposed to this. At what age did you have an understanding or know you identified as a woman? There's the very typical story that we see on the news or on TV all the time, celebrities like Jazz Jennings or Sophie LaBelle. I knew from the time I was 4 years old, I was totally tortured as a child. My father didn't want me to wear dresses, but then I was allowed to wear dresses, and from the time I was 6, I was a girl, and then I was a woman, and that's been my life. That's lovely. That's awesome. I didn't have that vocabulary when I was 6. When I was a little kid, I couldn't even fit that in my head. I didn't know that was an option. When I was 6, I really loved Xena Warrior Princess. I watched that and I thought, do I want to grow up to be Lucy Lawless? Do I want to grow up to be Xena Warrior Princess? I really loved all the movies where the princess had to pretend to be a boy because it was dangerous, and that doesn't mean anything. I wasn't able to really figure myself out in this regard until I was about 25. And that was when I realized, like, oh, this is, because I could only get to that point because I had unraveled a lot of traumas and hang-ups and issues I had just from growing up. And so once I'm able to unravel that, I could take a step higher on that Maslow's pyramid of my psyche. And that's when I was able to discern that I was bisexual, and then I was able to look within myself even harder, and that's when I was able to realize, okay, I think I am trans. And that was my age, is kind of all my life, but also, about 25, about 3 years ago. Can you explain dead naming and why not to do it? Also, why not to tell stories about someone from their past and calling them by their previous name? Dead naming is a process by which people will accidentally or maliciously use somebody's old name. Is, hey, I go by Tom now. That's who I am. I'm Tom. And it's like, whatever, Angela. You will always be Angela to me. That's not who that person is. And so if you're saying that in that way, you are being malicious. You are hurting feelings, and on purpose. If you are incorrect about this, it's like, oh yeah, Angela came over for dinner, and Tom came over for, Tom came over for dinner, and it was really great. We had a lot of fun. Everybody makes mistakes. When I told my mom I'm working on this new name, she said, I have known you for 27 years as this other one. It's going to take me a minute to adjust. I say, you are fine. That is, I respect that. I acknowledge that. We know when we can tell when you're making an effort, and we can tell when you're not making an effort. And what you say generally means a little bit less than how you say it. But in this case, it's that, well, oh yeah, 20 years ago when Tom was in Girl Scouts, when Tom was a ballet girl, you've just outed that person. And bringing this up, either on accident in another setting, say you're talking, and it's like, oh yeah, back when Tom was a Girl Scout, they did this and that. What? Tom's a guy, what do you mean? That can create a confusion, that can create a difficulty there. And so this tracks right back to coming out, and how confidential is this? Where is it okay to share this information, and where is it not? Again, dead naming can be either on purpose or on accident, and you don't have to worry, I think, about us. Usually, almost all trans people I know are not angry and correcting and snapping you with a ruler because you get their stuff wrong. We get it. We go through this every day. This is not a new experience for us. We understand if you're making a mistake, but we're also going to see through it if you're just not making an effort because you don't care. Nobody had any trouble when my mom got married and changed her last name. Nobody had any trouble switching to that name. People had trouble when, after her divorce, she went back to her unmarried name. Some people kept calling her by her married name. And I said, and they did it on purpose. And I said to her, Mom, does that upset you? And she says, yeah, because that's not who I am. It upsets me when people put Mrs. instead. Oh, because that's not who you are. You're a very funny and effective speaker. I wrote this.
Whose question is that?
What do you think the relationship is between gender performance and teaching? That gender performance. I guess teacher is often in our society a assumed feminine occupation. Is women are teachers, but men are principals, just like women are nurses, but men are doctors. This is a role that has been just assigned artificially to women.
I'm wondering if you're not reading it, Diana.
2 minutes left. Are there any very good questions from the Zoomers?
The other side of that one.
The other side. What do you think of the general church?
Wait, general church or like church in general?
The Swedenborgian general church or church as a concept?
No, there's another denomination of Swedenborgianism that is more socially conservative, and it's called the General Church.
I don't know anything about the general church. I am not spiritually affiliated with the Swedenborgian church, and so a lot of the internal differences I am not a party to. I do not understand. That being said, I hope anybody who is unfriendly can open their eyes just a little bit and see that the world is so much bigger and more beautiful and more varied, and this can, congregations all over the country, almost every denomination, are shrinking. I don't know if this is a good time to be exclusionary. I think this might be a better time to be welcoming and accepting and open to different people. Thank you all so much. You are all so lovely. Are there any other very, very good questions before we press on? Because we're about at time. I'm going to get yanked off with a crook if I'm not careful. Okay. We will be, you can't get rid of me. I'll be out in the lobby answering more questions if there are any follow-ups. Thank you again so much for speaking with me today. This has been probably one of the most beautiful birthday presents I've ever had in my entire life, is getting to be here and with you all. Thank you again so much for having this talk with me, and I'd love to give you my card. I'd love to talk with you out in the lobby there. Thank you.